Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson. And maybe a week or two ago, I don't remember how long ago it was at this point, I did a video on something called Wayland.fyi. And one of the people who was involved in making that page decided to comment on the video. And as I do, I tend to reach out to people when they do neat things. So how about you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Um, my name is Shrub on the internet. It's not a real name. It's my internet name, I guess. And I play with computers, and the reason I'm here because I and other people. I was one of the people involved. I don't want to say I'm the lead person. It sounds kind of arrogant. I was one of the people involved. We made this website called Wayland FYI, which some people have been referring to as Suckless Wayland, which is one way of putting it. When I say some people, I mean you.
By people, you mean me. I'm the one who started that, yes.
Yeah, although a few people had said similar things before. So obviously, I guess most people who know it's probably a good way to starting getting into explaining it. So Suckless, they made software that's simple. Some of it is good, some of it's not very good, in my opinion. But so now they made something called DWM, which is a window manager for the Xorg display server, and I have used it in the past. But I was kind of sick of X11 as a whole, and I was also not. I mean, I had moved to I used Sway for a bit, and then I was on Neri, which is very good as a piece of software to use as a user. But I don't really like it from. I don't really like most of the Wayland compositors and software from the kind of code and backend perspective. Even though most of it is great from a user perspective, it's much better than X11. So I wanted to do something that was a bit simpler, approachable for a developer from a code standpoint. And I found this project called on GitHub by a wonderful programmer and developer called Michael Forney, who's made many other amazing things. But he made SWC, the Simple Wayland Compositor, and I tried it out. So this all came about because I'm developing a Linux distribution. I feel like I'm going on a bunch of tangents, but I was developing a
Jump
Linux
around as
distribution.
much as you want. As you're jumping, I'm like jotting things down we can go back to. So do whatever you need to do.
So I was developing my Linux distribution, which is called Derive Linux. It's amazing. No, don't install it. By the way, no one install it. Okay. But I was working on that, and I wanted to get Sway because I think it's probably I thought it would be easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because my distribution has no Mesa. It's all statically linked, so you can't have Mesa. It has no UDEV because UDEV is bad. And so I was trying to get WL roots to compile statically with just Pixman, which means a CPU rendering on DRM without UDEV. And it was really hard, and I could not get it to work at all. So obviously, I decided the next best thing is that I should fork a different project and make my own compositor that works with my distribution. It seems like the logical next step. So the way it started is with Havel. You mentioned it in the video that you made. So originally the project was just Havel, and we bundled a modified version of SWC inside the Havel repository, and that was the way we did it. Then eventually we started making so many modifications and improvements to SWC that we decided to make a new repository just for that. And also SWC has something that it's layered on top of called WLD, Wayland Drawing Library. So we also made a repository of the changes we made to that, and we called it New SWC and New WLD. And those are on my source hub page. And I posted some stuff like on Reddit and whatever, and it kind of ended up gaining more traction than the distribution that I was working on. So you know how these things go, right? So we made a little page for it, and that's Wayland.fyi. So it has that on it, and there's loads of compositors that people, me and other people, have made on top of our stuff, and also some assorted software that isn't really related to what we're making, but is kind of aligned with the message. So yeah, that's why I'm here, I guess.
So why are you sick of X11? Like what? Actually, firstly, when did you start using Linux? Like how long have you been using it for?
I've been using it since I was about 13, and my dad helped me install Ubuntu on my laptop, and so I was using my first desktop was GNOME, probably on Wayland. I don't remember. I wasn't interested at the time. Then I was using 20. I think it was either 24 or 22. I don't remember. I think it was 22.
I think they'd swap by default by then. Maybe.
Yeah,
It
but
was either
so
that or the next version. It was around that point.
and then after that, I was using Mate, I think that's how you say it, on X11. Then I started trying out more like DWM, like window managery stuff, mostly on X. And then recently I moved to Sway and Neri. And then now I'm only using my own software, which is fun, right? I'm using my own compositor. But the main reason I got sick of X11 is not really from a user perspective. As a user, I think both X11 and Wayland have their strengths and weaknesses. But I think sort of in the back, when you look at how X11 actually works, it is just the most just utterly disgusting, evil. It's like layers and layers and layers of just bullshit that's been stacking up for like 40 years. It's actually unbelievably bad. When you actually look at how it works. So I guess I should probably explain how it works, what the difference is.
Yeah,
X and
go
Wayland.
into that.
So X, now there is only one X11 implementation. People will tell you there are more, but they are liars. The X Libre is just Xorg, and then Xorg is also Xorg.
To be fair, they don't really exist anymore. There are some independent, like a minimal X11 server.
So XFP dev,
I don't know.
Tiny X.
Maybe it was Tiny X. Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
Tiny X is based on Xorg. So
okay, we'll take that
like
what I said then. Okay.
Yeah. That was what I was originally using for my distribution before I wanted to switch to Wayland.
To be fair, sorry, I'm gonna tangent you again. Is the macOS X11 related to Xorg?
Okay, I don't know anything about walled gardens. I'm not going to try to climb
fair enough.
But probably not. If I had to assume, but I don't know nothing any about that. So Xorg is the singular X11 implementation that works on computers nowadays.
Yeah.
And it is like horrible, basically. So you have the way the X11 protocol works is there is a server, which is the X11 server, and clients can connect to that server. But the clients are not just applications that like user applications that appear as a window. The clients can be your window manager. The clients can be your compositor. Now, if you want to composite, you're going to need an X extension called Xrender, or no, Xcomposite, obviously. And then so all of these extensions, if you want to do anything on X, you need an extension. They didn't make this easy. Each extension is a library. It's not like an extensible protocol. I mean, imagine if someone did that, right? Each extension is a library. So you have Xfont for server-side font rendering, XFT for the client who wants to do font rendering, Xcomposite I mentioned for compositing, Xshum, I don't know how you say that, shared memory for shared memory stuff. Which is similar to some stuff on Wayland, but all of that stuff builds up. And then if you want to get a working X11 stack on a computer, you need about 60 libraries. It's like millions and millions and millions of lines. I'm not joking, by the way. It is for the bare minimum X11. I think it's about 50 libraries. That's what I had on my distribution, and that was literally the bare minimum. I've deleted all that now. I don't want to ever touch it again. I don't want to maintain it. I don't want to think about it. But with Wayland, it's like 15 or less things. The core library is much simpler. Now, the way Wayland works, instead of having a core server with clients that connect, you have something called the compositor. Now, this is confusing. This is like a big part of the website because people kept saying this to me. It's like my biggest pet peeve. So on X, you can have a compositor. And what that does is it takes the windows and it renders them in an off screen, and then it can add effects or whatever, no screen tearing. It adds it on top of them. That's called compositing. But that's compositing is actually just drawing the thing where the thing is supposed to go. That's what compositing means. So on Wayland, the compositor is it draws the thing, it accepts connections from the client, so it's the server, and it also has the window management logic in it, inside of it usually. So it's a window manager, a server, and a compositor all in one, which some people say that's fragmentation or something. I don't really know. I think it's a good thing, but hey, and then so. Now, it's quite hard to make a compositor from scratch. It's very hard to make a compositor from scratch. I think like, what was that noise? I don't know. Anyway, I think like three or four people have made a compositor from scratch that works successfully. The ones I can think of are Kwin, GNOME. I don't really know about these two. To be honest, I don't touch that stuff. And then WL Roots, which is like the famous one made originally, I think, by Drew DeVault, and now it's like free desktop. All those people work on it. And that is the premier implementation of a Wayland compositor for the last however many years. So Sway is based on that.
Mhm.
All the other ones that I don't use are based on that. I don't know. There's probably more. And then there's also
Technically,
one in Rust.
you could make the argument it's not really used on the desktop, but Western does exist as well, and for a while that was considered
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
the reference
I forgot
implementation.
about
Most of its use nowadays is embedded systems. The other ones you have are basically just libraries that exist, like, you know, Smithy. Smithy doesn't have a compositor built.
Smithy.
There's not a core like Smithy compositor. Like WRoots spawned out of Sway. Originally, there wasn't a WRoots. It was just part of Sway, and then it got separated out. Whereas with Smithy, it started as a library from the beginning, and then things are built with it.
Yeah, but nowadays WRoots is kind of used in the same way, where it's a library and stuff on top of it. And now my opinion actually on WRoots used to be a lot more hostile than it is. People have sort of brought me to the dark side, shall we say? Although I'm still not too happy with it, especially the UDEV thing. So UDEV is a device manager. It originally was part of systemd, but it's used on most distributions, including ones that use non-systemd init systems. So Void, Alpine, they all use UDEV as their device manager because it's very convenient. I like to make my life as inconvenient as possible. It's kind of the way I live. So I use MDev from BusyBox on my systems, and that's what I do. I mean, like I said, I make my life as inconvenient as possible. So I cannot compile. I was unable to compile WRoots. Now there is a solution to this. It's called libudev0 on GitHub. Right. It's like a UDEV, a fake UDEV. It tricks the computer into thinking you have UDEV.
Oh, it's like a UDEV shim. Okay.
Yeah, it's a shim. And I tried to use that. I also couldn't get it to work. I probably could if I tried really hard, but now I have my own compositor. I really don't care. But yeah, and then the other thing about WRoots is that it is very much the supported path is to have it with Mesa or graphics acceleration, which obviously is convenient for many people, but again, not convenient for me because I ASCII link everything. So those are two problems I have. But really, those are the problems specifically for me because I'm insane, or people tell me I'm insane. But the real problem that I had with WRoots is now I have messed around with making X window managers in the past. So I was like, okay, I want to make a Wayland compositor. I guess WRoots is the place to start, right? It is not as easy to make a compositor with WRoots as it is to make a window manager because it's not really a library for writing window management logic. It implements sort of the base protocol level stuff, and then you have to do all the compositing and window management policy and all the stuff on top of that. Not just window management, but also like the input stuff, the seat stuff. A lot of that you have to handle.
Yeah, I've heard similar. I've heard this a lot from people who sort of say that Mir is such a good choice. I don't know if you've looked at Mir at all or not.
I've never really messed with Mir, yeah.
But apparently with Mir makes some of that stuff easier. Smithy apparently does as well. And there's been other libraries that are trying to be like WRoots, like Louvre. I don't know how the project's going along nowadays, but a lot of those things have been trying to like simplify that. I'll let you keep going down that route. But we'll talk about another thing that's going to make it easier afterwards, if I remember. Keep going.
So now the way that my library, it's not really my library because it's a fork, but the library I'm working on, and hopefully, by the way, we're going to upstream a lot of the changes we've made in the fork to the upstream project because I've made contact with the original developer now, which I was neglecting to do. I'm not very good at these things. But I've done that now. So SWC, it makes it a lot easier. It's comparable to writing a window manager for X. You basically just have to handle window management logic and everything else is handled for you. Now, that does maybe people would say, oh, you don't have as much freedom. What I would say is you could just edit the compositor library. That's what I did originally when I was making Havel. I wanted to add that zoom feature. That is probably the thing that got me 1 million upvotes on Reddit or whatever. I wanted to add that. Now, because you only encode the window management policy, and you have to add that feature to SWC, the compositing library. So I agree that is one of the reasons why people like WRoots, because it does give you that freedom. But at the same time, I think a lot of people who want to make their sort of like hobby Wayland thing, they don't need to write 1,000 lines of code to do input or whatever. They just want to write the window management logic. So that's one thing that I think is good about my library. And also, it works on NetBSD, which is useful for people who use NetBSD. I use NetBSD occasionally, sometimes, not that often. but no other Wayland works on NetBSD. There was an effort, I think, to get Sway and all of that
Yes.
jazz working on NetBSD. I haven't seen any screenshots of like a fruitful Sway working on NetBSD. Maybe there is, but what I've got works on NetBSD pretty flawlessly. I've verified that, so I'm happy with that. And then they have also, by using all the compatibility shims, they have proper WL root Sway Wayland on. In fact, they have KDE and stuff on FreeBSD,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think they've got Sway on OpenBSD, but they use a lot of compatibility shims. Whereas with SWC, it has sort of native support for example, WS-cons, which is the input. So on Linux, there's libinput, which is what they use. On BSD, it's typically WS-cons, which is a whole different thing. So WL roots, I think there was a pull request for it somewhere, but it doesn't support that. Whereas SWC does. So you get that native input support. I think it's pretty cool. It wasn't me who did that. It was a NetBSD contributor contributing to the original project in like 2020. But it does work and it's cool. So that is one thing. Yeah, that is one thing about what I'm doing that is cool. It's more portable. A more portable Wayland. I think one thing I'm thinking about doing is getting it on Solaris. I think they have libdrm with drivers there. It might be possible. The input stack is different, but I think it might be possible. And I do believe that would be the first time Wayland would ever have been used on Solaris. I mean, I've never installed Solaris, but I'll give it a shot. Like it will be cool, right? Yeah.
I feel bad for anyone who's English as a second language for this episode, because you were just like going.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can see that you're clearly really, really passionate about this.
I'm pretty passionate. It's something I spend a lot of time working on, probably to the detriment of my results at school. But okay, my parents are going to watch this, so maybe cut that bit
out. Are you aware of the work that River is doing with separating out the Wayland compositing with the window management?
I think it's actually a really cool project. I wanted to make a River compatible compositor that takes River window managers and works, but instead of using WL roots and Zig, do it on SWC with C. And I think that would be really cool because obviously I can't use River in my system because also I don't have a Zig compiler, but I'm yet to compile WL roots. So if I could get something like that, because I think it's a really good idea and I think it's well designed as well what they've done. I'm a fan of River, yeah.
That is one of the the idea you were saying there about maybe I don't know 10 minutes ago or about on X11. A lot of people. Sorry, I'm jumping around now. So the problem is when I jump around, I don't even start talking. I just start jumping between things in my head. So a lot of people make this argument sort of from this position of not knowing what's going on, where they say things like, "Oh, X11 is simpler. X11 is more it might be more simpler to make something for, but it's simpler to make something for because it hides a lot of that complexity behind the 40 years of legacy nonsense." And whilst that might be the case, it has made it a lot more approachable for people who actually want to go and make a new window managing system for X11. And at least until fairly recently, we just haven't had a good option for building something where you don't want to get really, really into the weeds, right? If you want to go and do everything from the ground up, hey, WL roots, great, go and do it. Do something from scratch if you want to. But if you just want to make, hey, this is, tiling window manager, but slightly different, unless you're just going to fork off an existing project, there just wasn't really a great way to do that.
The code bases are so big. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that I think SWC is going to help with. I think on the website we have 6 compositors that are already made with it, or something of that number. And that's just popped up in the last few. I mean, this hasn't been going for long, so it shows you it's not super hard. You can spring something up. I think I'm working on a video. I'm procrastinating on a video. I'm working on a video of making a compositor with SWC. My example is about 80 lines of code. You can get a window on the screen in 80 lines of code. That is kind of what I'm going for. Yeah. And so it is really good to make things more approachable, because not only is it more approachable from the front end, it is for the user, but it's also approachable. It's simple at the back. You can trace through a whole Wayland stack without reading, like going through 60 libraries. Like you want to put text on the screen, like it's easy. Like that's one of the things I like about Wayland is it removes lots of abstraction layers. It's a very clear protocol, but it's also extensible, so you can do what you want. That leads me into another thing that always really annoys me when people talk about Wayland, when they say, "But I can't have a hotkey daemon," and like the security policy. No, it's too secure. It's terrible. But they don't realize that maybe if they put their hands on the keyboard and start making a compositor, they could just make a Wayland protocol that broadcasts all the keyboard events to every single window, and you can have like whatever bullshit like thing that you want to do. You can have that. It's pretty easy to do. I was thinking of doing it just to prove everyone wrong, that you could have like a universal hotkey daemon on Wayland, but
we don't need to prove anyone wrong. Like it exists. No one ever talks about it, but like that's a thing you can do in Hyperland. You can scope it to like application names, but like you can already do that. It's just nobody else implements it.
It's pretty annoying when people talk about Wayland like it's a monolith, because that's like the main point of it, is that it's not, compared to X, which is a monolith. Although recently they've been trying to make new X's, like the Phoenix thing. I don't know. You interviewed that guy, right?
I did, yes.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I started watching it, but I just can't wrap my head around why anyone would put themselves through that. And like, I don't understand it. I read the README of the project as well, and they're trying to add like the permissions feature from Wayland into X. I think that's going to make a lot of people really angry, right? I mean, if it works, like kudos, like it's cool.
Right.
But I do think we do just need to let it die. At this point, we just need to let it die. And into like, there's just so many parts that I could just ramble about how much I hate X, like with a passion. Maybe I'll park it there.
If you want to, look, I my audience is very interesting, right? I have a lot of people who understand the benefits of Wayland, but I get those like drive-by hardcore X11 people. It's always fun to just see. So if you want to annoy them, please go right ahead. Say whatever you want.
Okay. I kind of forgot what I was going to say. I just had an idea, but I forgot what I was going to say. What was it? It was.
Well, I was talking about Phoenix. Something about letting it die.
Oh yeah, when you want to put something on the screen, like a window, when you want to draw something into the window, it is like unbelievably, ridiculously complicated the way that it's done in the back on X. So you have xlib. Now xlib is like the X library for drawing stuff to the screen. It's like the most ridiculously hard to use, disgusting, evil library in the world. But there's an abstraction library on top of it called XCB, which is like the modern replacement. But the way drawing a window works on X is like, okay, put a line here, and then put like a line underneath it, and like you talking directly to the server exactly what you want to draw, lines, this, that. It is like an insane way to do it. It's almost like it was designed like in the 70s or something.
What year? Okay, what year is
simple.
XCB? XCB's 2001.
Okay, so not too old, but at least 7 years older than me. On Wayland, the application, like, okay, here's my buffer, just put it where you want. That's literally it. There's no crap. And that's something I think is also, as if you're doing client development, it also makes a lot. If you're developing applications, it makes things a lot simpler. But then obviously nowadays, most people who develop their client applications are using like GTK or like whatever crap UI library people like now. So it's all abstracted away anyway. But at the base level, it's nicer to develop an application for Wayland than it is for X. I'm working on some like fun applications now. I wanted to make where you could draw little 16 by 16 pixel art and then export it as a PNG. That's like a fun project, but just doing it with the WLD drawing library and like nothing else, like simple, the way I like it. Yeah. Okay. What's the other? Okay, so there's on the list here. The list. I've been given a list of topics.
It's just like general things. Oh well. Sorry, I'm just trying. I'm like mostly keeping up with what you're saying. It's just I gotta process things sometimes.
I'll try to slow it down.
No,
I'm sorry if I'm going too fast.
no. It's all good. It's all good. Just a bit of a side tangent. How long have you been doing like development for?
So I started working on my Linux distribution Derive. I think maybe it's been 4 or 5 months now. It's been not super long, but maybe about half a year if I had to make a guess. And then I think this Wayland stuff is at most 2 months old. I think. It kind of started because I was using my first Linux distribution I used when I was developing Linux stuff was Arch. And then one day my Yay stopped working.
Yeah.
Because a shared library had disappeared from my system after an update. I started to get like radicalized. Like, what are these shared libraries here for? What is the point of this? I still, by the way, to this day, I don't understand what the point of a shared library is. It doesn't seem simpler in any way. So then I installed Alpine. I was like, okay, this is much better. But as I wanted to get like a desktop working on Alpine, and then like all these dependencies start coming up, like dbus and like random GTK stuff. I don't want this. What is this? So I was going through every dependency. I'm like looking at it, like, why do I need this? And I just realized you actually just don't need any of this. Like, okay, dbus is like it's evil. It's like so evil. I'm pretty sure they made dbus to make me angry.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's another reason to make software that bad. It's like completely undocumented, like utterly undocumented. Also, the protocol itself, not only is it undocumented, but it's also like a poorly designed protocol, and it's like the most complex non-solution to an absolute non-problem. Like back in the day, in the glory days of Unix, when I was like a pre-fetus, they decided that like you have two processors and you want to communicate with them. So obviously, when you're communicating two things, you do it directly, and that's like the simplest, the most effective way to do inter-process communication. But somehow we've stumbled upon this idea that we need like this ultimate mediator written in like C++ that's incredibly slow, that with object method calls. I don't even know what that means, but so you have a process that makes a call on an object, and then dbus like sends that to the other process, and all that does is put a notification on your screen. Surely we could have thought of a better way to do this, right? So I'm trying to, the aim of my distribution is to remove all of that bad stuff that I hate passionately, and do a Linux that's like simple, not for you but for me.
Right.
Like simple conceptually, maybe hard to set up, maybe a pain to use, but conceptually very simple.
So if I'm understanding it right, like you're basically this is a story that's been told many times. We have a young developer who is convinced that he can do everything better than all of the people over the past 40 or so years.
I'm going to try my best, okay?
Fair enough.
I'm going to try.
I respect it.
Like when it started off like the goal was, I just want a small statically linked userland, and the original compiler I was using was GCC, and I had like some GNU stuff on the system. And then over time, as I was developing it, I started to get like radicalized, like all these like GNU dependencies kept popping up. You might see on the website, the fifth point is that the system is almost 100% GNU free. I guess everyone knows what GNU is. They're like a software project. They use a license called the GPL. The guy, Richard Stallman, he has a long beard and he dresses funny. You might have seen a picture of him. They make bad software. They make very bad software. Now, so Microsoft, who are not GNU, Microsoft are a different company. They make Windows.
They do.
They have this. What's the word? Strategy they like to do called, what is it? Like extend, expand, extinguish. But the idea is they take something, embrace, extend, extinguish. They take something, they embrace it, they extend it, and then they destroy it. So Richard Stallman was like, okay, I can do this, but instead of charge people money for it, I'll do it for free. So he took Unix, even though he doesn't even like it, he said multiple times that he doesn't even like it that much. He extended it by adding all his like extensions, right? And then he makes everyone use them because there was no really other option. The GCC was a free compiler. Now everyone is going to use it. And then now everyone is stuck using all this GNU stuff with a GPL license, and we're stuck here forever. It's crazy, right?
Oh, that's going to annoy someone. Oh,
I know That is probably the take that I have that gets people to hate me the most. I don't know why. It's just my opinion, man. Some of the GNU stuff is not even that bad. Like GCC and Clang, like they're both large, angry, annoying compilers. Um, now everyone's stuck. Like the main thing that's annoying is Bison versus Yak. I don't know. Do you know Yak? So Yak is it was like an original Unix tool, yet another compiler. It's a tool that's used to make parser tables to parse things that you can use to make a compiler or to make another thing.
Right.
So the reason that I started to just GNU made their own version of Yak called Bison. I don't know why it's called that. They like things with horns. I don't know.
Yak, bison, animal naming.
Oh, the Yak, the animal. I wasn't thinking about that because it's spelled with two C's. That's a program.
Yeah.
That's actually. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I was compiling libxkb common, which is the X keyboard library, which is also used on Wayland. They really should rename it. We should start a petition. Please rename it. I was compiling that, and it says you need Bison to compile the. I forgot even what it was, but you need Bison to compile this to create one of the parsers for it. And I looked back in the commit history, and it used to support Yak, and they just deleted it, and now it only supports Bison. I was like, I just started to get so confused, like, what, why? So I patched it back in, and it worked fine. And that started this journey of like, why are we using all of these extensions that are non-standard that GNU invented when the original still works fine? So that's another thing I'm trying to do in my distribution is work through all this software with GNU dependencies and like just sort of rip it out because we don't need that. Well, I think we don't need that. I know people really hate when I say this. Like I posted on Reddit like a screenshot of my distribution. I was like, no GNU was used in the making of this screenshot, and then someone like commented like, "You're an edgelord. You know nothing about software. Your distribution will be dead in a year." By the way, though, I might have quit by now, but now you've said that, I have to keep doing it out of spite, like just for the next year.
Yeah.
But people, I don't never really understand this, but people really hate when you say bad things about GNU.
With the exception of Bash, people are like totally fine with you saying like, I want to do everything in POSIX script, but anything else, don't touch it.
Don't touch it, yeah. I mean, even some of the like more like crazy people distributions like Devuan, where they patch everything, they also still use GNU stuff. But with Bash, people hate Bash because the extensions they added like so not good. Like they don't really fit in a shell scripting context, like arrays and stuff like that. I mean, it is kind of useful. There are times in my life where I'm like, gosh, if only I had some GNU C extension, it would make my life a lot easier. But I don't use that. So, like I said, I like to make my life as inconvenient as possible. Yeah.
So you say almost 100% GNU free. What is left over?
The only thing that is currently a dependency in the repository is GNU make, which is it's very, very hard. I'm trying to get this replaced, but it's very, very hard to replace GNU make because it started off as like the tool people use to build software made by GNU, and then they add a few extensions. But really, it's kind of evolved. It's like a build DSL domain scripting language. Like it is like a whole language of build system. Like the Linux kernel build uses kbuild. Kbuild is like an abstraction layer that generates like loads and loads and loads of GNU make files. It's really hard to replace that. It's really hard. Ideally, what I would like is something that parses the GNU make file and outputs a Ninja build file because it's a lot faster and better. Google did try and do that to speed up Android builds. It's called Catty. I think, yeah, it's called Catty. I tried it. It's pretty cool, but it's like really hit or miss, and it's a C++, which I don't know how to work with really. So I'd like to do something like that, but not in C++, and works like for everything, absolutely everything, and then I can destroy and put a big banner on the website, 100% GNU free. It'll be amazing. But yeah, that's my plan for what I'm working on.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
We kind of went on a tangent. This is supposed to be mostly about Wayland, right?
I don't know what this is about.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can talk about some of my plans for Wayland stuff that I want to do in the future.
Sure, yeah.
So I recently stumbled upon the website. I'll try and find the link. I don't remember. But so have you heard of Oasis Linux? It's another project made by Michael Forney, who originally made SWC. It's a project I'm pretty inspired by.
Right.
It's all statically linked, very good. Someone made a system with Oasis Linux and an SWC custom compositor, and they put it on a Pine phone, and I thought that was awesome.
That's
I don't have a
okay.
Pine phone. I want to do that. So I looked on the guy's website, and he said, I used to have this all on my personal Git repository, but I accidentally deleted the VPS, and it's all gone. So the idea was cool. So I'm going to try and maybe do something like that. I do need some funds to buy a Pine phone, but I'm sure I can get something worked out. Right now, I have an iPhone because my parents paid for my phone, but I'm sure I can buy a Pine phone, right? And then I'm going to try and get my distribution with a mobile compositor and work on some like sort of mobile UI stuff. This is like quite a recent idea. I only thought of it like 3 days ago, but I think that'll be awesome, right? Linux phone support has like been evolving silently but pretty well. You can make calls on it. You can do camera. You'll never be able to do banking because the world just sucks.
Yeah, that's like they do have like very what's the word? I'm forgetting the word. They don't want it to be run in a very specific environment. I'm forgetting the word.
Yeah,
a tested environment. That's the word.
I think it would be cool if I could get like a sort of simple suckless Linux phone with a cool mobile Wayland compositor. So that's something I want to do. And the other thing I want to do is I started a bit of work on this. Someone else is make a compositor that represents all the windows as in a 9p file system. You know, 9p is the protocol that was invented for Plan 9. Nowadays, it's been delegated to like QEMU and WSL. It used to be a cool network file protocol. Now they just use it for like to make Windows and Linux work together or something. But I want to make a Wayland compositor where all the windows are represented in a 9p file system, and instead of having like keybinds that are like preset and hard coded in the compositor or hard coded in a config file, you just interact with a 9p file system in some way, and that manipulates the windows in that way, which kind of makes it an easier or less, shall we say, less secure way of interacting with Wayland windows. So that's something that I want to do as well. There was on X something they did that I think it was released to Suckless. It's called WMII or WM2. It's spelled WMII. That's a similar idea, but on X. So I want to do something like that, but a bit more bare bones on Wayland.
Small scriptable window manager with a 9p file system interface with an active layout. Sports classic tile window management. Okay, I didn't even know about this one. Okay.
It's very old. I think it might be the precursor to DWM, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And then some other things that I've done. I ported. So Plan 9 is something that I'm inspired by. I got this. Let me get it. ThinkPad. It's not plugged in right now. It's a massive one. This is my dad's from like 2003.
Oh, okay.
It's like some old ass ThinkPad. I have Plan 9 installed on it, but it's not charged right now. Plan 9 is a cool operating system. I really like it. But the thing I like most about it, even though it has good operating system backend design, is the Acme editor that they made is like really, really good to use. I've been using it for like probably a year and a half now. But the only way to get it on Linux is through Plan 9 port, which is a port of Plan 9 to Linux. But Plan 9 port, as far as I could get it to compile, only really supports X. So I made a compatibility shim using the WLD drawing library that takes Plan 9 port draw calls and converts them to Wayland draw calls, and then I can get Acme working natively on Wayland, and it's on my source site. It's called Hack, which is, I know I called it that, but I forgot what I called it that. But that's a native Wayland port of Acme. So that's, so it's just sort of small things like that, getting kind of niche-ish X software that I like to work on Wayland. Because I am kind of an X guy, like, to be honest, at heart, I want a hotkey daemon and like a script for window manager. And none of that stuff really exists on Wayland yet, even though it is a much better protocol. So I'm trying to get all that like set up, kind of.
You're trying to like show that it's possible, at least for your own setup.
Yeah, and then use it.
Honestly, that's all really cool. That's honestly, everything here sounds awesome. One of the things that was brought up in Wayland FYI was regarding desktop portals.
So a desktop portal is some kind of like satanic like interface. I don't really understand like what it does.
Right.
It's something about. It's like they use dbus in some way to take something called you're using your screen with Pipewire, and then there's like a dbus interface, and in some way that lets you screen share on Discord using dbus and pipewire and a desktop portal. I honestly, I really try to comprehend it, but when I can't comprehend something, it probably means it's poorly designed software. And I really think they should make a way of screen sharing without a desktop portal. There probably is a way to do it. Because, like I said, Wayland is infinitely extensible. You can really do what you want. But the problem is when there's a standard like a desktop portal for screen sharing or for other things like a file picker, the applications need to obviously support it. So Firefox or whatever needs to support whatever you're using. So probably the solution I have to do if I work something out is create something that isn't stupid to screen share, and then probably patch Firefox or whatever browser or thing to support a non-desktop portal way of screen sharing and doing other file pickers such interactions. But I think one of the main uses of desktop portal is with Flatpaks because it's a sandbox application. I already use Flatpaks, so that's not like a big thing for me. The main thing is screen sharing. I know a lot of people want that. Right now, you can't screen share on SWC or any SWC based compositor. So that's something I would like to work out in the future because desktop portal, like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why it's done it like that.
Possibly a stupid idea, and I don't know if there'd be a sensible way to get it to work. But most of these apps obviously are able to capture your screen on X11. So theoretically, what you could do is have your own compositor and then sort of build a shim between your desktop and the X11 support that then somehow manages to abuse that.
That's actually an interesting idea. I didn't think of something like that. It could be interesting. What I was thinking is to implement like a protocol kind of similar to just like the screenshot protocol we have now, and then sort of just like directly stream that into a patched version of the application, which is obviously a lot more complicated because you have to patch the application.
Right.
But that is also an interesting idea. I think I'll look into that, see if it's possible. And, you know, you can get a little thing. Thanks, screen sharing, Brody Robertson, for the idea. You get credit.
Another alternative route, which is a dumber idea, but also has been done in the past, is you can pretend like your screen capture is a webcam, which will work for some applications.
Yeah, I think that's something you could do now if you get it set up right. It's just a bit of a pain. Like, people don't really want to do that. They expect things to work out of the box.
That is the way that when Discord screen capture wasn't working, that's the way that KDE was working around the problem with Discord. They had like basically a little daemon that ran in the background that would just take the screen capture and then convert it into a webcam feed.
You know what? That's what I could do to get it set up now, because there are times when I wish I could screen share. Sometimes people come into my RSC chat and they ask me, how do I screen share on SWC Compositor? And I just tell them, why do you need to screen share? Who needs to see your screen? That's terrible privacy. I mean, but that's obviously not true. I'm just lying to them.
I think that is that is one of the problem with just sort of trying out a lot. There are some projects I've wanted to try out and like wanted to actually give a proper shot. But if there's not a way to screen capture, I can't daily drive.
It's not really practical. I know it's practical, not practical for a lot of people. I mean, to be honest, I don't think SWC. I think I might be the only person daily driving it. Maybe, although I think there's the other person who's developing Compositor might be using theirs. But there are reasons why it's not super daily drivable right now. So the original SWC project, before we forked it, didn't have any subsurface implementation. And there are some apps which like use subsurface very heavily, like Firefox. And now I'm using Firefox right now because I implemented subsurfaces into SWC. It took a long time. It's still not perfect, but it does work. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is layer shell. That wasn't in there at all. So no bars worked. It had its own protocol called SWC panel. Because, by the way, SWC was made in 2013 before layer shell existed.
Right. Okay. That makes sense then.
So they had to implement their own protocols to do like a DWM style bar. And we were just using that to like make our own little bars and stuff. But as of, I think 2 or 3 days ago, I implemented layer shell properly. So it supports some simple layer shell clients like Waybar now. And just over time, I'm hoping to update some of the protocols that are on old versions, add new protocols that people expect, hopefully get most of it upstreamed into the original SWC project, because obviously he did most of the original code, Michael Forney, and I shouldn't be taking credit for it all. Everyone go to the Michael Forney GitHub page and like start all his stuff, because he's like the GOAT. I just want to say that. He's probably one of the best people like of programming in the modern. He made so much good stuff. So that's my plan, and then eventually I want to get it to the point where like you can just use it and it's easy and it's simple and it's not a pain and things just work most of the time. And it will never be like WL roots, because they have like probably like people are probably getting paid to work on that, and there are like loads of developers working on that. This is just me and like 5 other people, but I still do want to get to the point where it just like does just work, and but also is a little bit simpler, approachable as a developer, easy to make a compositor, extensible, like code base wise, easy to hack on. WO Roots is massive. It's 85,000 lines of code if I remember correctly.
WO Roots.
Now they say 60,000 lines of code that you don't have to write yourself. I think that was in the README at one point.
Right.
I ran the clock CLOC count lines of code command on it, and it's like 80k actually.
I thought it was bigger than that. Okay.
But SWC is the original is about 10k, and our fork is I think 18k, and you still get most of the core. It's very usable, like for a basic window management system. So it just shows you don't really need a ginormous monolith mega code base to just get things working. So yeah, that is my end goal with all this Wayland stuff.
Yeah, that's something I've heard quite often with people who've like gone away from the WO Roots route, where it's like WO Roots is very over-engineered, from what I understand. Where it does kind of everything, and if like that makes sense if you're trying to be a generic library, but doesn't.
You don't always want to do everything.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It leads to a lot of code. Yeah. There's something more focused and more approachable, like for developers, and simple to work on. I just think it'll be nice, and it doesn't really exist. I mean, I haven't tried Smithy because I don't want to write Rust particularly.
Right.
Maybe that's easier if you like Rust. I don't like Rust. It's you can't even bootstrap the compiler anymore. I think that's like crazy, right? But yeah, so just a simple. And another thing, people made some compositors for SWC using Zig, because Zig has really good C interoperability. So I thought that was cool. I mean, Zig is like an alright language, I guess. So and that was cool. I didn't expect that you'd be able to do that. Every time I see someone make a compositor with SWC, it makes me really happy, because it's just cool someone's using stuff that I made or helped make to make something that is fun and cool. So, yeah.
So you want it to be simple. Is there anything that's sort of like outside of the scope of what you wanted to even really be part of the core project?
Outside of the scope, I mean, so the main thing I'd say is outside of scope is giving like full compositor level control to the compositor that you make with a library like WL Roots, because I think that would just make things really complicated. So that's out of scope. Originally I was planning to make things a lot simpler, like just do like literally the bare minimum to get Windows on screen, because that works for me. But I've realized with the help of some convincing other people that maybe that's not practical for the majority of Linux users. And even if I want it to be simple, I guess it's a waste of time if at least most people won't be able to use it. So like I wasn't going to implement Layer Shell because I thought we already have something similar. Like, what's the point? I wasn't going to update any of the protocols because everything or most apps I use already work. But I've kind of changed my mind on that. I've done a bit of a U-turn, because I think it would be better if you can keep. I think I can keep it simple while also keeping it, up to date. Modern Wayland works with everything, has decent protocol support and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say anything is out of scope. It just depends how much time I have.
Right. So something I've I don't know if we like properly covered it. We just sort of like covered it as part of like a general rant. You've brought up dbus as being a problem a number of times. It sounds like you have pretty much anything that touches dbus. You just like...
I don't want to touch that. Yeah, I don't want to use it. I generally don't understand dbus. I spent like multiple days trying to wrap my head around it, and I don't really understand how it works at all in any capacity. It seems like a very overcomplicated solution to what I thought is a very simple problem, which is like making Firefox put a notification on the screen or like stuff like that. Like, I don't think you need an entire bus service to do that. I don't see why Firefox can't just fork and execute some executable that adds a layer shell client with a message in it. It should be that easy, right? I don't know. Am I crazy? I feel like I'm crazy, but it seems so much simpler. I mean, why has no one done this, right? So dbus, I don't understand why it exists. I feel like Free Desktop do a lot of things where the lower levels libraries that they make are actually mostly good. Like, obviously they have a big part in Wayland. Free Desktop, it's hosted on Wayland. I mean, Wayland is hosted on Free Desktop, and it's a great protocol, as I've said many times. Or like stuff like FDev, or like all of that, the lower level stuff they do is really good. But then when you get to the sort of like desktop level user space programs. I think they really like overcomplicating everything. Like dbus is really overcomplicated. All of the stuff like the past like with desktop environments, the standards they have for that are like I just don't understand why it's like this. I don't understand why it's like this. I feel like it could be so much simpler.
Mhm.
I have a kind of mindset that everything should be as simple as possible because I don't see why we need so much abstraction and complication in computing. And people think that having things be simple means that like everything has to be like hard to use from a
Right,
user
right,
perspective.
right.
But I don't think that's I don't think that's true at all. You can have an intuitive like system that a beginner can pick up and use while also having it be internally simple. But if you have a externally simple program with with an internally that is internally complicated, the universe will present you with a user who knows how to use the program but has no idea how it works, which is not what you really want. What you really want is something that is externally simple and internally simple, so the user can easily use the program and also easily understand how it works, because that is how you're supposed to use a computer, I think, personally.
I think we have a lot of that on Linux, where you have people who are like confident with an application, have no idea how it works, and then have a lot of opinions on the correct way that things should be done.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have that opinion if you don't understand what is happening internally, because your idea or suggestion or opinion might just be impossible. That's why we need to make software that is comprehensible. Unlike dbus, which is incomprehensible. Even someone like me spends a lot of time working with computers and looking at code. Another problem with dbus, which has been mentioned many times by a variety of people, some who I agree with, some who I disagree with, is that dbus is just completely undocumented. Like, they just lie in the specification. They do just blatantly lie in the specification. There are some things that they say are implemented, and you try and do it, and then no application will accept it. Like, it just doesn't exist. That like shouldn't happen. Like, there's just pure incompetency. There's no excuse for that. There just isn't.
That is actually a somewhat common thing in free desktop, and some of it is honestly just because it's been handed around a bunch of times, and there's a bunch of old pages that are completely outdated, but they're still being linked to from pages that you assume are the correct up-to-date page. So there might be good correct documentation somewhere. It's just there's
But
a bunch of these.
Find it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these like weird incorrect links just scattered around the place.
Now, I'm not good. I feel like I shouldn't hate too much, because it is like it's free. Like, these people aren't getting paid to work on stuff. Like, at the end of the day, we are all just hobbyists to an extent, some more serious than others. I do feel like there could be a little bit more clarity, especially with the dbus stuff, about making sure that the stuff that you write on the website also works when you implement it. I feel like it's a little bit bare minimum. I don't know.
Yeah, what I end up hearing for anyone who writes a like new implementation is they just go like for a lot of this stuff, they just look at what like KDE's done and just like the documentation is the implementation that KDE has.
Yeah. The code is the best documentation. I mean, what like there's no other, because obviously what KDE has actually handles it properly, because KDE is used in production on your laptop. So yeah, that's the only way of making a dbus implementation. Also, the original dbus implementation was like crazily slow, and now there are like 5 more. Like dbus broker, I think, is the one that's used on most mainstream distributions, and there's like one in Rust, probably called like dbus RS, if I had to guess. But yeah, there are a bunch of implementations. I feel like if they just made one competent implementation, it would be easier. I mean, I'm all for multiple implementations. It's something that there should be multiple implementations of everything. It's something that I do often. I just re-implement something that in a way that I think is better. But make sure that when you do that, that it's in harmony with the original implementation, or you end up with a situation where nothing works as intended, which is like annoying for everyone involved.
On the topic of like multiple implementations, we kind of touched on the idea of like fragmentation of Wayland. This is something people often talk about. It's like, you know, on X11 you have Xorg, so Xorg is the thing that is doing everything. Wayland, you do have a bunch of these different implementations, and you kind of like brushed off the idea of fragmentation earlier. I don't know if you wanted to like touch more on that.
I think fragmentation generally, if all implementations are mostly compatible or 99% compatible, is ultimately a good thing. Like, let's talk about most compositors for Wayland that people make are made with WL roots. That's great. But if I want to make something simpler, I feel like there should be an alternate implementation I can use. Or if I want to make something in Rust, there should be an alternate implementation if I can use. On X, if you want to do that, you need bindings and all this stuff. It's not really native. It's not great. And also, when you have the freedom to use an extensible protocol and layer on top of it in whatever way you want, you can make whatever you want. Whereas with X, you're limited to what the server can handles for you and what the protocol handles, the X protocol handles for you. So it's a little bit more limiting in that way. Whereas Wayland is, people can sometimes compare it to Vulkan. It's a very low level. It's just a wired protocol that it doesn't handle graphics. Like it is really bare bones. So you can layer anything you want on top of it, and that is what makes it, in my opinion, great. When people say fragmentation, I just see it as more freedom to make the thing that you want to make on top of it. Now, I'm not gonna dispute and say that maybe there's like one case where like it works on KDE but it doesn't work on some other thing. Like, okay, that's not great, but overall, I think it's a positive, personally.
That used to be a lot more of a problem in the early days.
It's getting a lot better.
Like when, especially like you were saying before, where you had SWC, which didn't even, this was before Layer Shell, so it had a custom way to do bars. That's just, like, yes, Kwin has their own thing, but like those are desktop environments. Those are sort of intended to be used with the shell they build.
With themselves,
Right. But when we talk about things, you know, that are built with Mia, that are built with WRoots, that are built with Smithy, that are like, you know, Hyperland, like all of these make use of Layer Shell. So at this point, that issue is pretty much just eliminated.
So this is the problem. I think probably the main problem with Wayland. This is one thing I agree with all the haters on, is that the time it takes. You've probably I think you've mentioned this in your videos. The time it takes and the insane statements people make in the discussions about when they're creating new protocols. It's not great. I think it could probably be done in a better way. Like the session restore protocol took ages, or the zones protocol, that was really needed.
The worst part about session restore is everybody agreed that it was a good thing. It wasn't even like an argument about do we want it. Everyone was just arguing about the correct way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's just stupid, to be honest. And then the zones protocol is something that was really needed. The one where you have multiple, like for stuff like KiCad where it's multiple windows. There are so many people, I feel like they were kind of brushing in software that wasn't a real use case, but there are a lot of people who are using software that just needs that support. And it's just ridiculous not to have it. Now, in my opinion, everyone just sits there and complains about it. What I would have done if I was using that software is I would have just made a protocol that does that, implemented it into SWC, and then just patched the software I was using to use it. And then eventually maybe I would upstream or something, or I would wait till they made a real protocol for it. But I think people just have to start taking initiative a little bit more, okay? It's open source software, so you take the software and you do the thing you want to do with it. Be solution-oriented, people, okay? Don't just complain. Just fix it yourself. That's what I think.
Yeah, there actually has been... You know, now it's time to get into, like, the Linux boomer talk. There has sort of been this change in the kind of person that uses Linux, and this... I don't know when it happened, but... If you look at the early days of Linux, you know, before GUIs were, you know, as widely available as they are now, most people using Linux, if you're back in like the early 2000s, if it like pre-Ubuntu, let's just say pre-Ubuntu, most people using Linux at that point were developers or developer interested, something developer adjacent, like they were most likely doing something in that space. Whereas now, it's pretty much dead simple. Like you can just install like a CachyOS, a Fedora, pretty much anything, and you don't have to ever even open a text editor, look at a line of code, and that has completely changed the kind of person that uses Linux. At this point, you don't even need to have like a development background or any interest in development, and I think that's a good thing because it means things are actually in a good state, but at the same time, you also have the issue where a lot of people don't even realize that the only reason this exists is because people are actually writing code. The only reason this exists is because there is this ecosystem of volunteers who are trying to make something.
I think it demonstrates that from a use perspective, Linux is at a really good point where like anyone basically, I mean, I installed like Debian Mate on my friend's computer and he's like using it for school and he was using it for school for a bit and like that. So it shows like you can just pick stuff up and do it. But at the same time, when a person is using Windows or some other operating system like Chrome OS, they aren't really considering. They don't say like, "Oh, think of all the paid volunteers from Microsoft who worked on this who worked on this operating system." Whereas I think this is something that some of the desktop environments have been doing, where they have like the little donation notification that pops up like once a year. I think it's kind of good to remind people that like this is free software, open source software made by normal people mostly, or just normal people. So, and you should treat it in that way. And if you have a problem, don't just cry about it. Maybe learn something, or try help someone, or report it. Like, just take a bit of initiative. I feel like that's the way to go. But also, I feel like a lot of I really want to make at some point a user-friendly desktop environment that isn't needlessly overcomplicated. I feel like that's something that doesn't exist. I mean internally overcomplicated, because they all use like dbus and GTK and stuff like that I really don't like or agree with. So I want something that is like a Linux Mint style thing where you can just pick it up and use it, and it's easy, but it's not ridiculously terribly designed. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, to be honest, because those sort of projects take a lot of people who know about interface design and who know about making things easy. I find it hard to make things easy because I like to make my life really hard. So, but that is something I want to do, because I feel like at the end of the day, like the more people using a free operating system, the better. Whether it be a Linux or a BSD, I feel like that's also underappreciated. Make sure your software works on all Unixes, guys. It's important. For me, at least.
I think you can definitely say that, like, because a lot of these big desktop, like your GNOMEs, your KDs, things like they've been around for a while now. You know, going on 30 years very soon. There has sort of been this sort of like, you've had these rewrites into new toolkits. You've had this like feature creep over the years, and obviously GNOME pulled back a lot of features over the years and tried to like simplify things. But you're gonna have that sort of problem where it is difficult to wrap your head around a code base that has been around for that long, that whilst they might have had some like general guidelines on how to write the code, it's not something that was, you know, fully architected from the start. We have like build documents on how to abstract different components. It's mostly just done through vibes, done through code guidelines, and adding things on as individual developers want to add things on, and then developers review the code like, oh, that makes sense, and it's mostly fits together and mostly works. But because of that, I think a lot of people do find it, especially for the established projects, find it hard to, I guess, see how to get involved in that. And yeah.
That's something I really struggled with when I was getting to programming. It's kind of hard to just like make a PR, or make a contribution. Like, you don't really know where to start, or you don't really know what like an open problem is. I try and make my projects like approachable to contribute to. I hope I'm doing that. Anyone who's watching, like, make something with my stuff. Like you can email me, you can contact me. Like, I just want to, I want to make sure everyone can like contribute. That's something I'm committed to. That's why, I mean, Codeberg is terrible. It always goes down, but I keep my stuff, at least my distribution stuff, on Codeberg, because it's easy to make a PR. It's not as easy to use the git send email pat thing on source that. So I like to keep some stuff on Codeberg so people can easily contribute without having to learn how to use git too much, because git is complicated, right? But making contribution accessible is something that's important. And there are a lot of like, I know when I was starting to get seriously into Linux programming, I mean, I was always programming. When I was like doing Linux Edge programming, I was just making my own stuff, and I was never like contributing to other people's stuff, which maybe has led to like this cool stuff happening. But it's also important, like, there are all these projects out there, like there are loads of people who are solo working on like cool stuff that they might not finish if they don't get contributors. So like, look out, and it's never that hard to reach out to someone, like, to try and make a contribution. The thing you said about architecting, like how it just kind of builds up in these layers, I think the reason that happens is because I watched this video. It's I forgot the guy. He's like a really smart guy. It's I think it was called the One Unbreakable Law in Software. And he just explained that software takes the shape of the organization that's working on it. So when you have, like, I don't know, Microsoft isn't that organized, but let's take Microsoft as an example. They have all these teams that like
Molly Rocket.
Yeah, that's the channel. That's not the guy's name, but that's his channel.
Okay. Yeah.
When you have let's say they have different software teams working on like different stuff, and they kind of split it, and you kind of get that shows in the software where the thing is abstracted. Like, let's say they have a sound team, and that sound team is working on 3 different things, or the sound team is split into 3 different teams, so each work on 3 different things. That comes out in the software where it might be abstracted in 3 different ways. With open source projects, when it's not like a super centralized organization, what generally happens is there's a developer, and its contribution to a sort of just going on top, on top, on top, on top. So that I think that's why a lot of open source software ends up in this sort of like pile of trash, like software architecture where it's just stuff laid on top of stuff, on top of stuff, on top of stuff. Because the way that it's organized is literally just a guy and then a contributor going on top of that, and then another contributor on top of that, and on top of that, on top of that, where people aren't really working in like synchronized teams. So that's why we have this problem in Linux and open source of like poorly architected designs, in my opinion.
When you talked about like doing stuff yourself, I don't, people talk about this issue of, I don't even think it's an issue. I think it's people just complaining because they like complaining, where,
love that.
They do like that. Where you have a lot of these sort of re-implementations of the same thing, right? Like the 300 different implementations of like NeoFetch, for example, or all of these like, this is Vim but slightly different text editor, or you've seen how many terminals are out there probably, where
too many.
I don't like, it's not a bad thing, right? I think people assume, people are weird with it. People are really weird with like code being worked on, where it's like, they assume that the work that you've done on one project is sort of, that work would have been transferable into another project, right? Where if you weren't spending time on your thing, you would have spent time on this other thing that was maybe more like widely used. Whereas that's not really how that works. It's people are working on the things they are personally interested in.
Passionate about, yeah. But that's like probably, I guess, the reason why I mostly work on my own stuff. Like I could contribute to WL roots and like add a patch that makes it work without UDEV or something. But like it's more interesting for me personally to like sort of make a new or a newish, because it is a fork, but newish thing rather than like have to contribute to someone else's massive code base. So that is why people do it. But at the same time, like you should also try, if you have code that's useful, you should try and contribute back.
Sure,
yeah. I have a lot of patches for my distribution that's like removing Bison dependencies and replacing it with standard Yak. I might try and upstream some of those. I don't know if the projects will accept them. I don't know if they're interested, but I might try. Because I feel like that, like if you have something that's useful, like just show it to people, like see if they want to upstream it. I neglect to do that for like 2 months when I was working on my fork of SWC. And then like the Michael Fournier, like he just like found it one day and he was like, he emailed me. I felt so bad. He emailed on the mailing list, like, I feel quite sad in that like maybe you didn't want me involved. I had sent like a whole long email like, no, that's not how it is. It's not I didn't want you involved, I just forgot, or I'm not very good at reaching out. So you should always reach out to people if you're working on their stuff. It's important. And that's something I've learned definitely over the last few months or so.
I will say when you're doing stuff by yourself, it does avoid that like complexity of like interpersonal stuff, right? Where if you're trying to get it upstreamed, like this is probably going to happen with the Yak stuff, where you're going to try to upstream it, and then you're going to have to justify why it's a good change, and you're going to have projects where maybe they're interested, but then there's going to be like arguments about whether or not we do want to do this. And for stuff like that, maybe it's not super complicated, but when it is some more like fundamental thing, like as we were talking about with the Wayland protocol stuff, the problem with most Wayland protocols isn't technical. You can like documenting a protocol, doing all the XML, all that stuff, relatively straightforward. Yes, there's going to be some technical challenges on some protocols. Most of the issues are more like these interpersonal things, trying to justify to other people why this is a good change, especially for those ones where it is a bit more of like a controversial protocol. And doing stuff by yourself, maybe you can... Yeah, maybe you can say it's a bit of a cop-out to, like, not have to deal with other people, but it is nice to not have to deal with other people.
Yeah, when you scroll through those discussions on the free desktop GitLab about the Wayland protocols, man, I don't want to be dealing with that. That's why I'm never going to try and contribute to this properly. They love arguing over there about just, like, random, very specific things that no one's ever going to think about when using their computer. But hey, I guess someone has to do it.
Like, with the zones protocol, for example, it's like, what if a window was to pretend to be a password prompt and then place itself over another password prompt? It's like, yes, that could theoretically happen. Do you have a documented case of that happening on Windows or on X11 or on any other systems? Like, yes, it could theoretically happen. But like,
It's a classic case. A lot of people do this where they try and mitigate security problems that don't actually exist. Like half of the OpenBSD's security mitigations are just like they're mitigating a problem that could theoretically happen, but no one's tried it, but it might happen. It's basically the same thing with that. Like, well, what if they make a fake password window? Like, okay, they could, but will they? I don't know, maybe. But I mean, I would say better safe than sorry, but it does add like a lot of BS for no reason, a lot of like unnecessary conversation and complexity to the protocols and stuff like that, or to the operating system in the case of OpenBSD. But if you are, I mean, I know Wayland has a big focus on security. Security isn't something like I'm like huge on, but I don't know. I guess it's worth it if it's going to make our lives more secure. Maybe if those password prompts can't appear. I'm not so sure on it. I don't know.
I feel like if you're in a situation where somebody, well, firstly, like with Wayland, you can't see the other windows with most compositors anyway. So if you're in a situation where a password prompt knows where to place itself on your screen to pretend to be another password prompt, I feel like the person who is doing this has quite a bit more knowledge about your system than
you do.
Yeah, well, they have enough knowledge about your system where there are more dangerous things they could probably go after. For example, it's like, have you seen any of like the system D birth date stuff people have been arguing recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the argument that Pottering made in favor of adding it is applications that aren't sandboxed can like just see every file on your system anyway and uniquely identify you as a user, so the birth date doesn't actually change it. So it's like the birth date is sort of this that was his logic, right? His logic is the birth date's a sort of a red herring problem until you worry about like sandboxing all your applications and not just having everything just, you know, read every file in your system.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a non-issue from his perspective. Do I agree?
I mean, the thing with the system D, like age verification, is I'm pretty sure you could just edit, if you have root access, you could just edit your age, right? That's how they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, no, it is a optional field that you can just edit, pretty much.
I mean, here's a tip for anyone who really cares about age verification, and this is in no way biased. If you want to avoid age verification, you should use a distribution that doesn't have dbus or systemd, and then there's no way they'll be able to verify your age. Okay, I'm telling you, because the two ways that they've proposed of doing it is a dbus interface and a systemd user db field. Mm-hmm. So if you have either of those things not on your system, they're not going to be able to tell how old you are. I promise. Okay, that's my opinion on the matter. But I mean, the age verification thing was really scummy from California. I do think that the open source project should have more of a like make me attitude. Like I don't see why we need to force ourselves to comply with this. Like if it's volunteer projects, but at the same time, I guess people don't really want to get sued, right?
Mm.
My distribution is illegal in California, so yeah, I guess that's the end of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you saying that. Like, at the end of the day, it's just a whole mess. That's what it is. It's just a whole mess of a situation because, you know, you can say like just don't comply and don't like do all this. Like, yeah, I agree. You probably shouldn't just, especially when things are still being discussed. I do think they just jumped the gun, merging it pretty much as soon as possible.
The law probably isn't even in effect yet. Laws take ages to be in effect.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like, we can also say that, like, just don't do it. But also, there's no compliance being done right now. So it's like, there are these, like, there are these small distros that are, like, posturing about, like, we're never going to do the age verification. Like, sure. I believe you. But let's see what happens when the fine is sent to you, right? I'll believe you for now, but look, until you show me some proof that you're not going to fold immediately with any sort of pushback, you know.
I mean, I saw one. It was actually not Linux. I think it was Nomad BSD or one of those like small BSDs. They changed their license. It's technically no longer an open source project.
Oh,
their
Midnight.
license says Midnight BSD. That was it. Yeah, their license says like you can't use it if you're in California. I think that's hilarious. Poor Californians. What are they going to do if they're very strict license obeyers? I'm not a license obeyer at all. because it's kind of impossible to obey some licenses when you statically link things. That's another reason why I make my life really complicated. Like FFmpeg, I have to link a GPL library statically, which is like illegal basically. I think it's a grey area, but it's quasi illegal. So there are illegal things that I'm doing. Should I be admitting it on the internet, or Richard Stallman send like his agents to like kill me and hunt me down?
It's not like
I don't know.
Nintendo. I don't think they have agents.
So they do a bit of suing people, but they don't really have the funds to do it so often. But I think it's kind of a bad what the Midnight BSD people did. It's understandable, but I think it sets a bad precedent. Like overall, like it's not really something we should be doing. Even though obviously people living in California can just like ignore it. It's just words on a screen. But it's still, I don't think it does set a bad precedent. Like, are we just gonna start excluding? I think they said their plan was to implement age verification in some way, but personally, I think there should be a little bit more protest. Like, these open source projects, we're not corporations. We're not. These laws are. I guess if I was appealing to lawmakers, I would say they're anti-competitive. I don't really believe that, but that's what I would say if I was appealing to lawmakers. And I don't think it's really fair to enforce that upon volunteer-run projects. So there should be more protest. If you live in America and you have to deal with this bullshit, maybe like call up your congressman or whatever you have over there. I think they also have it in Brazil now. It's really bad. The world's kind of going to a bad place. I hope we can get this sorted. But hey, until then, we'll have a System D age verification thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. Like I'm in Australia, right? So I have, we have our own problems down here with all that mess. The fun thing with the Australian stuff is they've basically just admitted that none of it worked. So
wait, what do they have in Australia?
Oh, you don't know?
Social media.
Oh, yeah, we have
social media.
Yeah. They had a under 16 social media ban.
We have. I'm in the UK. We've got like.
Couldn't tell.
It's just a shitty law, like like child safety banning certain websites for under 18s. But what it led to, the one thing, it doesn't really affect me day to day, except that like I don't know, I can't join some weird servers on Discord. But apart from that, there's one website. It's repo.or.cz. There's one open source project that I think that's the website that I constantly need to download a tarball from, and it's now blocked in the UK, and I have to find a mirror. So it's really annoying. So please, any politicians in the UK, please revert this law so I can download my tarballs. Thank you very much.
That's so. How that got included. I think that's the other thing. Like, I've seen sites also jumping the gun here that are not even remotely affected by the laws. They're just like, just make sure, be safe.
Yeah. Like, I've seen a lot of stuff where it's like, we might be affected by this law, so fuck you, we're not going to show you the website anymore. It's really annoying. People should be more angry and protesting and saying no, but also that has its own problems because you could get sued at any time. But hey, this is what we live in now.
You talked about like not complying, and that's something a lot of people aren't really talking about with the whole age verification stuff. Most of the bills don't actually have any punishment for individuals. It's not even like written in the bill. It is entirely targeting the operating systems. You avoiding it, there's no reason to give them the information.
Well, I mean, what are they gonna do? Like, you lie about your age and then they like send you to prison. Like, so yeah, with most of those type of laws, they target the organization because it still incentivizes the organization to force it on the user, which is like obviously still annoying for the user. But yeah, you can just avoid it if you have an operating system that lets you edit your age freely. Which I guess probably Windows and those ones probably won't be doing that. But hey, I haven't touched that in a long time, so I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, or just, I don't know, build your own operating system. That's
from scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
One day I'll do that. Maybe if I have a lot. Depends how much time I have.
So from the definitely not a lawyer perspective, what are the issues with statically linking when it comes to like GPL and stuff like that?
From what I understand, so the GPL when you link a GPL library, you need to make I think it's something about you need to redistribute the library code as freely modifiable. But if you distribute a static binary on its own with a GPL linked library, you have to provide to the user everything they would need to modify the GPL library to their liking and then relink it against their program. I'm not a lawyer. That could be completely wrong. But from what I understand, it is hard and it was slash illegal slash not allowed to link a GPL library statically, which is why one of the reasons why I think the LGPL exists. I mean, I don't like that. I think most of the GPL licenses are not that great, but the LGPL I think allows you to bypass that restriction, whereas the GPL doesn't. So if I start a binary repo for my distribution, which I'm going to soon, and then I distribute FFmpeg binary, I believe that I am breaking the law in some manner. But I hope nothing bad happens out of that.
She'll be fine. Should be.
Yeah, probably. We'll see. But yeah, so that's another thing. I don't recommend people to use licenses that restrict the user's freedom. The GPL is supposed to protect the user's freedom, from what I understand, but I don't think in practice it does that. From my experiences with it, because you can't statically link things with it, and it just kind of makes life a pain for everyone. So you shouldn't. I think there are cases where it has been beneficial. Like obviously the Linux kernel probably wouldn't be where it is today without the GPL. But I'd say for like the majority of software, like 99% of the time, like I would recommend to use a license that just kind of do what you want. That's my opinion. I used to be a big GPL guy because I'm like, but the corporations, they're going to steal my thing. But that doesn't happen most of the time. Again, with the exception of huge things like Linux, most of the time, the corporations, they don't really care, man. They're not going to give you code back anyway, probably, even if they do care about your project. So use a license that makes life easier for everyone. That's what I try and do.
What is your go-to license?
ISD or just like nothing.
Okay.
Because
I don't hear much about ISC. That's a fun choice. For anyone who doesn't know, that is the license that sudo uses, I believe.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, now you do.
I chose it because it's like MIT but with less words, and the less words the better, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Also, I think ISD kind of sounds nicer to say than MIT, or it looks nicer on a screen. That was also another consideration, a very important consideration when choosing a license. I think the reason licenses really don't matter most of the time is because actually it's kind of all just doesn't matter. It's sort of just a thing people like to spend a lot of their time thinking about, like the legal ramifications. But really, it's just code, and unless your project starts to get like serious traction, it doesn't really matter whether you have a license or not. I know it's like people like to say like, oh, but technically it's all rights reserved, but it is just sort of like I'm not going to say made up, but like it doesn't really matter. It's just a thing people like to think about, spend a lot of their time thinking about. But the ISC is the license I choose generally, because I guess people get angry at me when I don't put a license in the repo. I don't know why. I can't think of any reason why.
Well, at the end of the day, right, like unless you have a lawyer, you're not enforcing the license. Like
it doesn't matter.
Like you can So the licenses are a fun one, right? Because you can go to another open source project. It's like, hey, you're misusing the license of my project, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll fix that. But the people you actually are using the license to protect your code from probably don't care, right? Like there have been a ton of cases of, people in jurisdictions that just don't give a shit about licenses, and they're just like, GPL code? What's that? Don't know. Who cares?
What's a GPL? Yeah, you can even do that like yourself. Like if you fork a GPL project and put it on GitHub and don't put it on GitHub actually. I shouldn't have said that. Put it on a free non-Microsoft owned GitForge. And then you change the license to like some other thing, like no one's going to do anything, like you'll be fine. So it kind of is all like a made up mental game that we open source developers like to occupy our minds with, probably because there's not much else going on in our lives. But yeah, licenses, they're interesting. They are interesting.
I know, I think it's a fun topic, and obviously, look, it is important to an extent, but I do agree. People do, especially when we start getting into the niche differences between the very similar sorts of licenses. Like, oh, are you using BSD 3 clause or MIT or ISC? And it's like,
they're all the same. All the permissive licenses are the same, except the original BSD that says like any software that uses this must say in the advertising material that it came from the University of Berkeley, which I think is a really funny clause to put in a license. Like, if you use this software and you advertise it, you have to put my name on the thing. I think maybe I should start doing it, and it can say everywhere, like Shrub. That would be great. But yeah, so I think they now FreeBSD and all the other projects who are originally using that Berkeley license like remove that specific clause because it's kind of a pain for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, use licenses that make life easy for everyone. That's the best thing to do.
You said that the Linux kernel probably wouldn't be where it's at without the GPL. Have you ever actually looked at the original Linux license?
I have not. I know it was like some even stricter copy left, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, let me see if I can quickly find it. Original Linux kernel license. It was something that Torvalds wrote himself.
Never a good idea, by the way. That's another piece of advice. Don't write your own license, okay?
Yep.
Don't do that.
Okay, thank you. AI nonsense. Give me the actual license text.
Google AI summary.
Okay, alright, it was merged into the README. It wasn't even its own separate document at this point. Jesus, thank you. Torvalds, very useful. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Copyright.
Okay.
Section 2, just in the middle of the document. The kernel is copyright 1991 Linus Torvalds, but all or part of it may be redistributed provided you do the following. Full source must be available and free. If not with the distribution, then at least on asking for it. Again, that's such like a weird way to
open internet.
A weird way to describe it. Copyright notices must be intact. In fact, if you distribute only parts of it, you may add copyrights as there aren't copyrights in all files. Small partial excerpts may be copied without bothering with copyrights. Again, that's just like not at all legal text. It's like, what is small?
I mean, well, yeah, a small redistribution of the entire code base.
And then the most important one that definitely Linux wouldn't have been where it's at. You may not distribute this for a distribute as a spelling mistake. You may not distribute this for a fee, not even handling costs. So you just weren't allowed to sell the kernel.
Non-commercial. I guess that makes it not open source, if I remember the definition correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. That's pretty funny. I mean, the thing that like, I don't like the GPL license. I think it's a really bad license. But at the same time, you look at where BSD is at today. Sony is using it in the PlayStation. Nintendo, I think, used the networking stack on the Switch. It's being used in Netflix. Used it in their stack for a long time. They probably all could have made significant contributions, but they obviously have decided not to. That is bad. I think that's really bad because BSD is a much better designed operating system than Linux. It's just not as usable for daily use. Now, maybe if all these corporations would, out of the kindness of their heart, contribute to it, then it would be better. But it's not. So that is one thing where maybe the GPL has had a slight positive effect on the world. But for most other use cases, it is pretty annoying.
Things could have been very differently in that regard. So,
a lawsuit, right? Like the AT&T Unix lawsuit, and like GNU were going to use the BSD kernel, but then there was a lawsuit and they didn't use it, so they used Linux instead. Is that what you're going to refer to?
No, I was going to talk about the GNU operating system where they were building Herd, which was, if you look at the original email that Linus sent out, was like, this is not going to be big and serious like GNU, because everyone at the time was like, this is going to be the free operating system. It's going to be amazing. But originally they were going to use, I believe it was 386 BSD, and then Storm was like, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna wait for the mock kernel from this university, because it was like a microkernel, but it wasn't even open source when he wanted to use it. He was like waiting for, it was like still in the research stage. So it delayed things for like 6 years. And then by the time it was ready, people had already started using Linux. We already started, I think Debian and Slackware were already out by the time they even got properly started.
I mean, microkernels are hard. They're really hard. That's proven by the GNU Herd still only working 78% of the time after 30 years. That's like a real figure. They can only build 78% of the Debian package repository, which I guess is impressive, but it's been 30 years, man. Like, come on, speed up a bit. I mean, people have made whole operating systems in that time. But microkernels are hard. Like, I think Apple, the macOS is like a like a weird quasi microkernel, and it kind of works, but it's also just like a microkernel, like with the entire BSD like hammered onto it.
Oh yeah, that's another thing
Doing,
that's built off of BSD
oh
stuff.
yeah, another stolen BSD develop. I think I want to like all the free BSD developers use Macs anyway, so I guess they get some kick out of it. But FreeBSD isn't even a real BSD because they have like 100 compatibility shares with Linux to make anything work. So it doesn't even count. But it's basically a Linux distribution with a different kernel, which I guess makes it not a Linux distribution. But it's so close to Linux that it's like funny. But what was I even saying?
Something about BSD. You were talking about FreeBSD then. Complaining about FreeBSD.
No, before.
Uh,
Microkernels are quite
yes,
hard
microkernels,
to
yes.
make them work because the IPC. Now IPC is hard. Dbus is slow. Dbus is IPC. Microkernels also use IPC buffer drivers, and they are generally slow, which is a reason why I don't think they've ever taken off. But like conceptually, it's a much better design than a macrokernel. I mean, having drivers in user space is nice. Having as much as you can in user space is nice. But we're kind of here now. I think it'll take a very long time. I'll probably have a long grey beard like Richard Stallman before there's ever a microkernel that works in production. Production being on my laptop once again.
You said
Yeah.
you said just before that you think the BSD is better designed. Where like what do you, yeah.
Linux is massive. It's
True.
it's massive for a reason because it works on everything, like literally on everything. But I don't like massive things. I think they're generally ugly. I think Linux is a pretty ugly beast, but it's a very useful beast. And sometimes I need to do schoolwork and homework on Firefox. And Firefox is a complicated program. And while it does work on NetBSD, which is the only BSD that I'm willing to use, it's kind of a pain to set up, and it's an old version of Firefox. And there's all these other problems with BSD. So that's why I generally use Linux. But purely from an operating system design standpoint, BSD, I'm talking specifically about NetBSD because it's the one that I like. It's a much smaller code base. It's specifically like the least desecrated corpse of research Unix. Like it is like kind of like the last real Unix. The code base is nice to read and look at. It's simpler conceptually. There's less subsystems upon subsystems upon subsystems. But again, like it will never be where Linux is. I don't think it ever will be, or it'll be a long time. And by the time it gets to where Linux is now, Linux will be in like a whole different place. Although, you know, I'm not really a fan of Rust in the kernel. My opinion on Rust is like, I don't really like it.
Oh.
I don't really know why. I'm not gonna. I think I really don't like that the compiler is so hard to bootstrap. That's the one reason I don't like it. But like, if it ever came to a point where I would have to get a Rust compiler on my system to build the Linux kernel, then, which I think is probably going to happen soon, but someone will probably patch it out. Anyway, then I might consider moving to BSD more. But unfortunately, it's not really a usable system for me personally, as someone who does a lot of software development and a bit of gaming. So that's why I don't use it. But the user spaces, having the user space in development with the kernel is always a good idea. That's one reason. Having everything developed as one, having the libc developed with the kernel is again also a good idea. Now, because Linux has been developed for so long, there kind of is harmony between the libc and the user space and the kernel. Only if you use the one that's the GNU libc and the GNU userland. Now, there's Muzzle, which is one of the best programs, one of the best pieces of software ever, in my opinion. It's amazing libc. But there's not a lot of actually, but there are a few things that don't work with Muzzle. How do you know? I don't think I've ever said the word muzzle in real life. How do you even prounce it? Is it
I assumed
muscle?
it was muscle. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's muscle.
I actually have no idea.
I need to. Anyway, so that's why, like, although I do like kind of the swappability aspect of Linux, like you can use a different userland or a different libc or a different. And when I say userland, I'm referring to core utils mostly, or different libc or stuff like that. It also means that like it does feel a bit disjointed and a bit less unified as a system. And a unified system is maybe in some ways better. So that's why I think BSD, two reasons: the code quality is nicer, it's smaller and simpler, less subsystems upon subsystems, generally a simpler build system, and it's more unified. Those are the reasons I think BSD is better. But there are a lot of things I can't do on it, like run a virtual machine with kernel virtual machine. So I'm not going to use it as a daily system.
It sounds like your general like overarching goal is to have your software be as simple as possible, and like simple and easy to understand, but not necessarily simple as in like it doesn't do much, but like easy to understand code, and not just, you know, not something that is trying to account for every possible situation.
But something that works for me and for people with similar use cases to me and is like just comprehensible. I like things that are comprehensible. I like to understand everything. That's why when I don't understand something, I start making a replacement for it, which is probably a bad habit. But yeah, that's my general, I guess, software philosophy. Although people who say they have a software philosophy have too much time on their hands, they should go outside and touch grass. But yeah, that's mine, I guess. So maybe I should cook outside and touch grass.
Yeah, probably a good idea. So on that note, then, like, what? Sort of going back to the Wayland stuff, like, what is your criteria then for like good Wayland software? Because you know you've some examples listed on here for random utilities, but like, what? Well,
okay.
Yeah, what goes into that sort of idea then?
So the things on that page, I guess, are mostly just a shell of my stuff and stuff that is affiliated with my stuff.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's my website, right? And there's also a few other things on there. But generally, because Wayland software is kind of such an overarching thing, like Firefox is technically Wayland software, Discord, the Electron client, is Wayland software.
Oh, hello, BDC. You might still be able to hear me, but I can't hear you. Thank you, Discord. I love it. It's gonna come back. Yes, no. Okay, so this is a super scuffed way to finish this. My internet's currently out, so I'm currently playing the Discord audio from my phone into my microphone. Yeah.
But we had a good conversation, so it's fine. I thought we were talking about before the Wi-Fi cut out, but I guess you can finish that off and then call it a day.
I believe we're talking about something about Wayland.
What was it? It was like we were talking about BSD stuff and then talking about. I don't know if you don't remember, but yeah.
This is a apologies for the ending here. Like my
2 hours of footage, around 2 hours. I think that's pretty good going.
Yeah, it was an hour and a half. Yeah.
Form conversation of some manner on the internet. So that's pretty good. Thanks for having me on. It was awesome to talk, and I've been watching your videos for probably 3 years, 4 years maybe.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah, it is cool to be here, and it is also cool to be talking about stuff that I'm interested in. Something maybe I don't get to do so often. So thanks for having me, and I hope the people at home enjoy watching me ramble and talk aggressively at the screen about code and numbers and software and things of that nature.
If people want to check your stuff out, where can they go?
We are on IRC on irc.ergo.chat #DERIVE, Derive, which is the name of my distribution. You can follow me on, I guess, Mastodon is probably the best place. I'm Shrub900. I'm also Shrub900 on pretty much every single social media / non-social media / anything in the world platform. So if you want to contact me on I don't know, LinkedIn, I'm joking, I'm not on LinkedIn, but you can contact me pretty much anywhere. I'm Shrub900, and if you want to check out my projects, they are under the name Shrub900. They are kind of split between Codeberg and SourceHub, but if you want to look at code, that's where to find it.
Okay. Yeah, pleasure to have you on. Happy to have you on again in the future. Hopefully next time we don't have this happen.
Sure.
Yeah, no, pleasure to have you on. This was a fun episode. You're clearly incredibly passionate about this, and honestly, those always make the best episodes.
I hope that is enjoyable to watch as much as it was to make. I guess bye.
Yeah, I'll do my outro, and then I guess we'll sign off.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6 days a week. Sometimes I stream as well. I have got the gaming channel, Brody on Games, where usually my internet doesn't go out. Sometimes I guess it might. And if you're watching the video version of this, you find the audio version of basically every podcast platform at Tech Over Tea. And you can find the audio podcast on pretty much every audio podcast platform. Search Tech Over Tea there and you will find it. I'll give you the final word. How do you want to sign us off?
I hate debust and GNU.
Perfect.